Thank you so much, Jennifer. I feel really moved by that. I'm so glad we speak the same language of space and caesura and idiosyncratic line break. What can we say? But thank you very much. I should also say thanks to Ross Gillette at this point too, who was a keen editorial eye over the manuscript. And it's funny you should mention about the endings of the poems, because I feel like there were a number of times where Ross would say to me, okay, you're onto something here. Why don't you finish it at the the penultimate stanza? So I actually feel like I learned quite a lot of acuity and perception. So thank you, Ross, and thank you, Jennifer. I'd like to read from Remarkable as Breathing, which has been a great pleasure to write. I hope you find pleasure in reading it too. So the first poem is perhaps one of the sort of, it's more seemingly simple sketches that Jennifer was referring to, and it's entitled Angels, Birds. Angels, birds, fall from the sky. That indeterminate space they tumble out of what is not visible into oxygenated blue, feathers still damp with the vernix of infinity. They pause for a moment, balanced on an updraft, waiting to unfurl, then tipping one wing skyward, the other skims a break of winter waves, flickering in honeyed light, warm blood in the breast, breaths uncertain, ecstatic flight. I've got very excited about angels and birds actually. Birds for their immediacy, that the attention that they exhort you to bring in a way. But also the whole tradition of the angel, that feathered thing that comes from another space, really saying, look at something differently. The world can be different. This next poem I'd like to read is called Magnolia Breathing, and it comes from early spring in Yakandanda on a trip we had. Their broad and silken palms are magenta flushed. These petals that scoop and scoop in swelling afternoon thought, lotus-like, they quietly direct the eye upwards, a dispersion through meandering reaches, cathedrals of cloud that barrel across valleys encompassing horizon, where gleams are in love with flickering shadows, and a cheek might be stroked, the outside of these weathered bodies meeting gratefully. The intricacy of these organisms resting a moment in the untidy flux of things. We are leaning in. Only a small shift in ballast to breathe the same freshets of air, accepting entwinement's possibilities, then drawing back into quietude, inhalation of garden, its heady perfumes of pollen and sunshine and mud. Perched on the back of a chair, a magpie tilts head, and now we are seen, held maybe in the steady orb of keen observation. Beak closed, sound that bubbles, cascading, shuffling throat, feathers, so that the fullness of language rises, its petaled cadences, irreducible as springtime, freshness soaking the listening air. And because we've been talking about meditation, this is a poem entitled Meditation. Like a leaf that finds at last the direction of the river, its brown flecked movement, so too a mind might rest on this narrow ribbon of breath, might tremble in the particularity of this channel, its swoop and reach, its prospect of being still. This confluence, where a world gathers in, finding quiet corridors of nostril, lung, delta of artery, the deep-throated story of pulse, this place of watching, a quiet of hiatus where wavelets pause a while, hovering, suspended across sand, as though there might be nothing more. But this time, at least, the vastness of what tugs, turning breath into ozone, tide into ocean. This next poem is called Semazen. It comes out of a experience I had, was actually at the Brandenburg Orchestra, and they had a performance, Ottoman Baroque performance, where they included a performance by what we would call whirling dervishes, Sufis. So it was a combination of dance and movement. And what became really clear to me was that it was a kind of meditative practice, which was really rather wonderful. So this poem is a response, a kind of inhabiting, I suppose, of that experience. So Semazen is the dancer who's doing the twirling. This is written in triplets, and again, it's, as Jennifer said, it's always interesting, what form. Of course, anybody who writes knows you make really conscious decisions as well as instinctive decisions. But I guess, in this one, the three, if I had anything in my mind, it was almost William Carlos Williams's Red Wheelbarrow. So much one line depends upon a red wheelbarrow, and the sort of sense of the line kind of tipping, each time round. So I think I was trying, in retrospect perhaps, trying to emulate that kind of circularity of movement. It's on page 65. My heart is open, and with each pulse I am learning, listening to a wisdom that comes from the past, and listening to what can't quite be heard, the hum of the world, humming. My right foot propels me, it turns on the axis of everything turning. Hope fills the white folds of our skirts, and now unfolding we are lotus, unfolding into air, minarets of joy, into the blue. We are rising, one hand open to heaven, the other tipped toward earth. We are trees, our roots are in soil, while branches unfurl, dancing. Beyond the narrow tenements of ourselves, we are whirling leaves in a river, whirling. I see what anchors, I see what moves and shifts. I hear where music leads me. I am part of this whirling world, its risings and subsidings, turning. We are turning. And this next poem comes from a trip. It's one that Jennifer referenced in Darwin 2022, and it's a poem that came out of a trip I made to Darwin. But in being in Darwin, the viscerality of the heat and the fragrances and the specificity of place, I really had a very strong memory connection with my dad, who was stationed in Darwin during the war. And of course, I only know that experience through photographs and stories, etc. But anyway, this poem is a tribute to him. Pungent, heat-filled air rolls in like spinifex, sucking up fat droplets of water from the sea's blue jewel, drenching me. And suddenly, what had seemed to be past to have laid down comfortably in the dusty archives of things that are done with, stirs in me again. A persistent knocking on bone and lung, and echoing through obscured corridors of my carnelian southern heart. Frangipani silk on skin, turning wings of cream and yellow, glare of sun through jacaranda's feathered haze, scrub fowl ferreting, oblivious through dry leaves. In a faded photo, tattered at the edges, my wartime father smiles under a soldier's slouch hat. He is in khaki shorts, and his Queenslander's bare chest is tanned, a body ready for action. I remember that wiry cage of love, its strength, its cartography of gentle hollow. I would trade a great deal to be quiet there, sheltered again, to hear the steady tick of the time he was giving me, to sail those broad and generous reaches. Young man in a camaraderie of extremity, tuned for the drone of approaching planes, cheerful in rounds of daily ordinariness, under the soaring roots of the banyan tree. You were not yet my father. You are always my father. Okay, and this poem is called The Possible Sound of All of It. We are all daily dealers in the business of wisdom, that grand and very ordinary lift of the heart, when attention might settle long enough to glimpse just how things might actually be. How even what is small and particular can in fact be a portal, the longed for doorway festooned with shadow, soft flickers of light, it leads right into the welcoming arms of everything else. How some things might hover and dart, damselflies, electric, on the very horizons of seeing, and how I am largely content to sit quietly, watching a wash of cloud finding shape, dissolving, impelled by invisible bellows of air. This wide confluence, this flow of things, your face, the heft of trees, raw blue of sky, the possible sound of all of it, singing together. And just to conclude, if you'll bear with me, I would just like to read the poem that Jennifer referenced to, which is I Want to Say. But yeah, I think in many ways feels like a bit of a heart space in the collection. So this is on page 58. I want to say that love is a cool compress of quiet attention that comes a gift in the midst of flush. The fevered stories that we tell ourselves, the ones that sap our bones. It comes to rest just where discomfort settles, say where damp hair lies against a forehead. Love, it's like your mother's hand, the one who stands with you in the onslaught of whatever torments you, her body in air and in memory, adjacent to yours. This one is patient. You are held in the eye of her watching. Oh, see, you are cherished. so filled with cherishing. You are the bright green fuse that blazes into an astonishment of light, another day. And so in the presence of love, you are steadied. There is space for lungs to swell with possibility, time to watch the inevitable falling of leaves. This is not sadness, just movement, letting your own heart unfurl with time to gather the things that are precious, to let them go. The falling of water, the attention of love, such a small kindness, asking for nothing, changing everything. Thank you.